evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important and valuable hour of your day. I'm Michael, the CC for today's adventure, and today's show is How Do You Spend Your Time? Continuing step two in our own Tim Flynn's foundation of self discovery. Be aware it is Monday, and we will also be doing our weekly journaling update. So keep that in mind. We will be continuing to talk about values today and how they intersect with your actions. So, with us today, let's talk to our co-host. First, we've got Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator,
Hello, thank you very much. It's a lovely day to be here.
and Tim, our expert executive analyst,
Hi, Michael. Happy to be with you guys today. Looking forward to talking with you.
and Dennis, our freedom facilitator.
Hi, everybody. Great to be with you. A great day to free yourself.
Amen. So, like for all of those of you that are viewing us live, if you have a question or you have a comment, please feel free to throw it in the comment section, and we'll try and answer whatever the question is. So today we're going to be talking about value some more, but we're actually specifically going to be talking about to how it relates to our daily lives, and how do we put those values into action in our daily lives. So, Tim, you want to start off with a little bit about where this came from, why it's important, and
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So just keep in mind, this is like the third installment of the course. The first we did self-discovery, so understanding ourselves, and then we did a values exercise. And this third exercise is a time study. So how do we spend our time, and is that aligned with our values and what we say our values are? Are we congruent? And I hope you all found the exercise enlightening, and I'm wondering what you all learned this week from
Yeah, holy fuck.
that.
Like, seriously. So, I'm trying to decide what I'm spending my time on. And at first, I was trying to be all emeraldy and linear and go, okay, from 9 till 10, what did I do? And I didn't do one thing from 9 till 10. I did like four or five things. I was talking to a client and I did the dishes and I was listening to a show and I was learning this thing, and then I thought about something, and so I went shopping and I was still listening to the educational content and I was still talking to the client. You know what I mean? So I realized that there is no hour in the day that I have a linear time where I can actually say, okay, I'm doing this. And I don't know if it's because the way I think or the way I process information needs more input or what, but
So let me ask you some of the questions from the exercise. Am I involved in too many activities? Are there areas of my life that need attention? Am I living a balanced life?
those are three questions. Which one do you want me to answer first? I mean, seriously.
Pick one. It's a multiple choice.
Oh, I'll talk about the color yellow instead. No, I don't think I'm doing too much. I'm comfortable with the level I'm doing, with what I'm doing. I would say my tendency is doing not enough rather than too much. But then on the other hand, I'm not really sure if that's true or if I'm just imagining that that's true. Because I know I was feeling like I'm not doing enough in the Raising Excellence project. And then in comparison, I was like, okay, I think I am doing more than I thought. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's my perception or reality. But I'm keen to observe my time further because there are so many layers. Like, are you doing what you want to be doing? Are you doing what you is what you're doing in line with your values? Um, is it in line with how you want to show up in the world? And then remembering that the goal, like my values, are not just about learning, they're also about disseminating information, about teaching. So am I spending too much time on consumption and not enough time on production?
So were there any changes that you wanted to make after doing that kind of that introspection?
That's not really how I work. Like, I think that now that this idea is awoken in my head, I'll observe it for 3, 6, 9 months and see how it interplays with the things that I do, and then I can report to you then.
Nice.
Let's step back a little and describe exactly what the exercise that you're you're talking about, and really maybe a little bit more about the reasoning behind why this is important before we really get into more of the details. So number one, what we're actually just kind of going through our day and kind of outlining what we're doing, when we're doing it, and not necessarily like on a every 5 minute thing, or but in a general kind of estimated way, what we're focusing our time on, and then from that, maybe get a little more specific. But let's talk a little bit about the reasoning behind why this is important to change.
Yeah, well, I think if you understand your values and you're living your values in the way that you spend your time and the actions that you put out into the world, then you're going to be much more successful. You're going to be much more happy. You're going to be much more balanced, and you're going to provide a lot more value to the people that you care about and that you're trying to influence. So, the idea of the time study is to try to understand and align the way that you're spending your time now, or just to consider it. It doesn't have to be a this is how I spend my time every hour. This is what I do between these hours of the day. It's just, you know, like Agnieszka said, maybe there's buckets or general buckets where you place your time. And does that align with the values that you claimed in the previous exercise? And are there any adjustments that you want to make after you look at it?
I'm so glad like this exercise yeah messed you up so royally, Agnieszka, because I thought I was the only one. So the first part of the exercise, which I understood to be, to draw a little circle and put my name in it, and then draw like a bigger circle around it, and that would be the pie, and then to kind of determine, so the pie would represent the day, or the parts or my life basically, and then I would draw work and time spent with friends, and spend time spent with family, and kind of guesstimates the size of the piece of the cake, right? And kind of estimate. So that messed me up royally, because for the first time ever, it felt like I had to determine how much time I spent on which task. And then like right away, like it came to my mind that what am I actually doing like the whole day? Is it because like I was like, okay, I was spending time with friends, but then those friends are actually like also my clients, and then they're also my students, and then it's like, okay, so that's a big chunk. And then I realized that, oh, when I thought about the people that I consider my friends, then but I'm actually working as well while I'm with them, because it's like a class. But then I realized it didn't really even feel like work. Like if I had like a 9 to 5 job or so, I guess it would have been much more easier, because then it's kind of, it's set, okay, 9 to 5 is my job, and then I'm at home, and then I have a little, work in the house and so. But here, like on my current life situation, really, and actually it has been like that for quite a while. It's really hard for me to differentiate between like my friends and my clients, and then I'm with family. I'm at home much of my day these days, so I'm around the children, but at the same time I'm doing something on the computer, I'm working, but while I'm working I'm like, I feel, I'm learning, actually I'm studying. So it was really tough for me to differentiate between those different tasks. Yeah. Did you experience the same thing? Like that was just the first step of the exercise, and that really like it that felt kind of overwhelming in that moment, but very interesting as well, because it unbalanced me in that moment. Did you experience something similar?
Sorry. Yeah, it's funny because a long time ago I did the same exercise, and I did it in it was like how important things are. Like, how important is your job? How important are your hobbies? How important is your family? And it was super easy to divide the pie. Like, how important are my parents versus my boyfriend? You know what I mean? Like these main chunks of my pie. That was easy. But then when you take time and blend time into it, it's almost like I'm suffering from time dysmorphia. I'm either spending too much time or too little time, and I don't know which it is. And am I wasting time, or am I actually gaining valuable insights? Am I resting, or am I just being lazy? Am I doing too much or am I doing too little? There's like, you know what I mean? It's a constant question.
Yeah, I'll chime in a little here because it is something that, for me, I'm kind of like the perennial entrepreneur, and so I kind of, whatever is my, big task is really kind of my center. But then I do unfortunately suffer from a lot of the things that Agnieszka pointed out in our planning meeting, which is I do tend to do the multitasking thing where when we're certainly when we're dealing with things like the social media and stuff like that, which is something that I really am not very comfortable with. But it serves the purpose so well that I end up getting involved in it. But then it does draw the attention away, and the time just bleeds away. And exactly where that defining line is pretty tough to really know. Am I goofing off or am I actually doing something important? You know?
It's really valuable to like I found it really valuable just to feel that in myself, like, whoa, like what am I doing the whole day? Just that in itself, it brought awareness to like right now I want to think about what am I doing right now, what am I going to do tomorrow morning. So what is that? So that's really interesting to me because it challenges me to define and to focus on what am I doing, and that added awareness, I think, is something that can bring me what I'm looking for, which is to be more efficient in whatever I'm doing throughout the day.
And big shout out to our listener, Chris McMillan, who wants to know how he spends his time. And I'm sorry, Chris, but you're the only one who can answer that one.
But he's spending it perfectly right because he's right here with us.
He's
now,
listening.
So
That's
right.
right. Listening live. Way to go.
Excellent work there, Chris.
It's so one of the most valuable hours of your day, Chris.
There you go. So I found that I had pretty much stacked up my weekdays full of activities, and they did correspond to my values. And sometimes I slept through them, or I got too tired, or I needed a break. And so I feel like I need to give myself permission to take time out of my planned schedule because life happens and you have unplanned meetings. And you have, you go through phases, and then I found that I didn't have a plan for the weekend, and that's when I had free time, but I spent a lot of time doing productive things on the weekend, or learning, or resting, or working out. And so it was interesting. And also I think it changes over time, like depending on the phase of life that you're in. So if you have young children, your time is not your own, and you operate around their time. So it changes over time, but it's nice to be aware of it.
Another question that Chris Mike, just quick. Chris just asked, how do I stop myself from staring into space, doing nothing? I'm not sure if that's something that needs to be changed because time and time again, we hear from great thinkers like Einstein and Twain. I'm not sure which one of it said that, but one of them said that one of the most valuable things that they do each day is what they called nap time, which is basically quietly sitting in the corner doing nothing for hours. And then your brain has a chance to regenerate and can come up with new ideas.
Yeah, that's one thing that you miss if you stack your schedule so tightly.
I think it's Mike's turn.
Sorry, Mike. How about it?
I was actually going to ask that kind of a similar question, which was, how much, like when you're so purposeful and you've got so many things on your plate. And Tim, you're a perfect example of this. But there has to be a certain amount of downtime. And I just wanted to know if there's any particular research or evidence in regard to how much downtime should we kind of plan for ourselves when it comes to leading a rather busy life.
Yeah, I don't know about the research, but I think unscheduled time is key. To give yourself that time, whatever it is. I like the story of how Edison used to hold some quarters in his hand, and then he would lie back and start to go to sleep, and then he dropped the quarters just as he was going subconscious, and all of his ideas would be right there in front of him, and he'd write them down right away. I like that.
Oh. I think it brought back to mind the the difference between fight and flight and rest and digest, and think about learning as well, and how those states affect our learning ability. And there's the actual learning, as far as I understand, doesn't occur while we sitting at school or while we um, taking in actively knowledge or like a lesson, let's say. But the actual learning and understanding is after, when we actually relaxed in a relaxed state, and when we can integrate the newly acquired knowledge or facts, whatever, like in our being. And that can never happen in the time when we actively taking it in, but it can only happen when we really rest and digest and make it our own, so to say. And that was like a valuable lesson that I get, and that I always try to remember, when even when physically working with children or with adults as well, that when in a martial art context, when you go to class, you will take in a new technique, but really integrating it and adding it to your repertoire, it requires it requires repetition, it requires a specific training. But it's really, when you go to class, you're just taking new things in, but you integrate it and you incorporate and you make it your own by taking it home, or by going to a corner and by basically repeating it and undergoing the process that is specifically required to make it your own. But it's the class itself, or the reading the book, or the being exposed to the facts. It's really just the first step of a learning process that goes way beyond just that.
I don't know, is that kind of like the alpha and beta waves and the theta and the delta, all that kind of stuff, moving between those things to actually digest that information? Or does anybody have reflection on what that?
I don't know about alpha, beta, but I was just thinking about how when I follow my intuition, for example, like, if I'm sitting there quietly and I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta read something, right? And I'll go to the bookshelf and I'll pull up a book, and it may be like the most silly, whatever, children's book, but it's almost like I'm searching for something, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find this piece of content, right? And so I'm reading this book that has it's about nothing. Sally met Jake and they went for ice cream, whatever. And then suddenly there's that one sentence, right? The one sentence I'm looking for, the sentence that puts together some other neural pathways, that connects some other ideas that I've already had, and maybe some other books that I've already, and it gives me a new perspective on the old information. And then I usually, when I find the sentence, I get to it, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this book, moving on. Right? But it's all about developing or fleshing out ideas and feelings and concepts, and how understanding things in a specific way. I don't know. Am I expressing myself understandably?
I feel like that it's when you're really trying hard to remember something or to memorize something, and then sometimes you just have to let it go and focus on something completely different. Or sometimes I would try hard to learn a new technique, and then I wouldn't do anything for a week or for some days, and then when I tried again, all of a sudden it was better than I ever did before, without me even actively training it. But something happened in that period of totally letting go and being distracted from it and not trying anything. So there's some kind of process. It reminds me, even when I tried to ride a bicycle or ride a skateboard or so, you try and you fall down, and then you just throw it in the corner, and then the other day you do it again, or a week after you do it again, and without any additional training, but some kind of process seems to happen on the inside that enables you to all in a sudden go ride the bicycle or ride the skateboard like you never did before. And it seems that the relaxation and the resting, the digesting, the letting new things kind of settle in, that makes a difference, really. And I think it's really important, not only for children, but maybe especially for them, but for us as well, to retain that kind of time in our daily and weekly or monthly schedule, and in our lives, really, so that we have I think muse is the word in English, which refers back to the goddess or goddesses that where amusement also comes to my mind. The word amusement, it has that word muse in it, which is the leisure time or the free time that you would have, and they would play the harp and sing and basically occupy your time there. But it's not amusement as maybe we would understand it today, that we are like distracted by some, multimedia device, but it's something that stimulates you in a different way, in a relaxed atmosphere, that enables you to really for those seeds that we would have put in the soil before, for them to sprout in that time of relaxation.
So bringing it back to the values, when you're talking about seeing if the time that you're spending is in alignment with your values, how are you doing that specifically, Tim? Is that do I got my list of my values and okay, now I'm saying, okay, I'm doing this, or is there particular things that you're looking for?
Yeah.
Can you explain it a little bit better?
Yeah. I mean, before we get into that, what I wanted to build on what Dennis and Agnieszka said just a little bit, because I think having a rote plan is just a guideline. And I think learning is not necessarily linear, although that's how it's presented to us most of the time. It's like we have a mosaic and we're filling in pieces of the mosaic consciously. And then sometimes our unconscious fills in pieces of the mosaic when we relax, or when we're thinking about something else, or we're not thinking about it. So it's a nice, interesting way to learn. And I think people learn differently. And it's important to understand that letting go or relaxing or not trying so hard might lead to a better result for you. And as far as integrating values, I think having time blocks, and for me, it's been important to me to live my values as much as I can. So really I put that into my plan and I try to integrate it. And it might be just as simple as, hey, I say that I want strong relationships with my family. How much time did I spend with them this week? And did I plan to do something with them, or was I just consumed by my other things? And, I say that I value friendships, but did I invite someone to lunch, or did I just go off and do my own thing? Am I living these things out? So just being aware of them is, to me, the first step. And then having an idea of how we're living those values and capture, if I go through the whole week and I didn't do any of the things that I said I wanted to do, well, maybe I need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like one of the big questions is, whatever my value is, then how am I practicing? And then is that actually taking place? That's a couple questions that I think would be really valuable. Huh?
It just helps to have those in mind so that you don't get through some large period of time and have no idea. To be intentional about living your values is the only way to actuate it.
And then it seems that sometimes it might not even require a shift in the, let's say, the physical activities that we do, but maybe just bringing the awareness and bringing intention to what we already are doing is making a shift in itself. So we might not have, I don't know, to go to a different physical space or be around different people, but just, being around the same people, but bringing, as you said, awareness to it and doing it with a more highlighted intention, so to say, that can bring a shift in itself.
Yeah, being present while you participate as opposed to being distracted.
Chris says that his biggest distractions are a nice warm blanket and a purring cat in the morning that prevents him from getting up in the winter.
Well, he values comfort, so.
Oh, is that one of his values? I know when I was doing this value thing, I was going, okay, so watching a movie that's not really educational, what value could I stick that on there? It's love. It's self-love. Yeah, I'm loving myself.
Self-care, yeah, you have to take care of yourself.
But I don't know, but somewhere deep inside, I had this conviction that, you should not be watching a movie because it's not useful. It's not educational. It's not beneficial to your health. It's not beneficial to your work. It's not beneficial to your passion. So why are you doing it? You know what I mean? There was a judgment.
Well, shitting yourself and judging yourself is a disaster. It can be, right? You should yourself.
It's true. I would be the first one to tell you that.
I'm not going to tell myself that I shouldn't should myself, because that'd be bad, right?
Well, and I don't really shoot myself, but then when I have to report on it, I'm like, oh.
So I think giving ourselves the room to have self-care and downtime and being non-judgmental is very important to our well-being, our overall well-being.
Yes. I'm not sure if Seinfeld is a good solution, though, according to Chris. Seinfeld's
Makes me
where it's
laugh.
at.
Makes me laugh.
Well, there's certainly in regard to learning, there's quite a bit of evidence that suggests that storytelling is effectively how people learn throughout the generations and so forth. And so maybe there is kind of an inherent need for us to hear and be involved in listening to stories. And
Story
maybe that is another way that we digest the information into relevant information.
and storytelling is really connecting information with emotion, isn't it? Because the storyteller is if he or she is doing it well, then it's stirring up emotion. It's there's like it's captivating the attention that you're excited about it. So whether it's children or adults, but you involve people really on a on many levels in the story. So I was just reminded about that we really only learn and retain something that we have learned if we attach it to an emotion that we have. Is that true, Agnieszka? I know storytelling in you is one
Well,
thing.
the only way you can get people to be fully engaged in storytelling is by speaking on an emotional level, right? And by creating that connection, you know what I mean? When little children listen to stories, it's really easy for them to suspend disbelief and like enter the magical world, right? But for adults, you really have to put some extra effort into bringing very descriptive words and creating a story so that they can feel that they're inside the story.
I always feel that when Dennis tells his stories, that I'm in the story. So
Yep.
he has great stories.
Yeah, you should listen to that face reading follow-up story.
I will.
My eyes were this big.
So I think some of the most important stories are the stories that we tell ourselves about the events and the things that are happening in our day and our daily life. And being gentle and caring with ourselves is so important. And speaking to ourselves like you would speak to a trusted friend, somebody that you care about, and learning to be able to do that leads to all kinds of benefits and really just a living better.
Yeah, in psychosomatic therapy, when we encounter somebody who speaks to themselves in a mean or rude manner, we usually ask them if they would speak like that to a child. And, everybody has their little inner child inside. So if you're speaking like that to yourself, you're essentially speaking like that to a child, and that child is you. So how could you be more encouraging or constructive?
Encouraging, constructive, forgiving,
Loving.
caring, compassionate, all that. Yeah.
I'm wondering, just listening to this, about kind of creating the story around the values that we have. That is really the story that does tie in the emotions, that really does make it much more meaningful and purposeful for us. What do you guys
You mean
think
like a
about
mind
that?
palace?
What is that?
So
I think just being creatively, really kind of embellishing what it is that our values mean to us in a way that instills our emotions and draws on the power of our emotions to make it much more of an impactful thing to us.
yeah. Yeah, well, emotions seem to be the most powerful force in the universe. In my long life, I've discovered that emotions are one of the most powerful things that I have, not the mind and not necessarily the body. Because how my body feels depends on how I feel on an emotional level. If I'm upset, I have a headache, or my stomach doesn't feel good, or whatever, right? So my physical body is essentially controlled by my emotions. But I, as a soul, as a person, can also direct my emotions and encourage myself through kind and way to build. You can lead yourself to water just like you can lead someone else to water, right? So if you're feeling upset about something, you can lead yourself away from feeling upset and towards feeling good about yourself again, just by using the same techniques on yourself you would on anybody else.
Well, like you were saying, you were talking about emotions basically steering action. And certainly if those are the things that you want to motivate to do in your life, being able to tie those values to emotions is really the way to make sure that those things are action items in your daily,
When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I thought that emotions were a fact. Like, I feel that way and therefore it's real, you know? And I was so convinced that they were fact. So as soon as I felt fear, I thought that it's right, it's just, it's justified. There's something scary. You know what I mean? Like, I had all of these ideas and I didn't realize that it's really like Don Quixote and the battle of what are those called? Windmills. Right? You can't really, it's all an illusion inside you. You can be completely justified in anger and feel good about it, or you can be completely unjustified in anger yet feel absolutely livid. So your feelings and reality are not connected, but your feelings and your body wellness are connected. So that's a tricky one, right? So then if you allow yourself to feel hatred or anger for prolonged periods of time, you're actually damaging yourself because your body will respond in all these different
I
bad,
think it's a fantastic.
negative ways.
I think it's a great example. If we say that your value is to impact your world through positive emotions, and that is, just as an example, that is a value that you're holding. How would you tie that to your daily actions, to the things that you do throughout the day? In order, maybe that's a great example, to just to give an example to the audience, like
Isn't
how
that
we
one
can
of
tie
the
a value like that to our
values?
activities.
Isn't that one of Jim Carrey's values? I think that there's this great speech that Jim Carrey tells. It's like a university commencement speech or final, and he does this speech for this university, and he talks about how when he was young he had a yearning to make people feel good, and the best way he could make them feel good is by making them laugh. So even as a small child he would injure himself and do somersaults down the stairs and all this stuff just to get a reaction and get people to feel happier. Life sucks. There's all this shitty stuff that's going on, but I'm going to do this stupid thing so that you laugh and you have a moment of happiness in your day. So that was his motivation as a kid. And he didn't want to be trapped in a 9 to 5 like his father.
It sounds like a pearl.
So, I mean, I think we're like advertisers understand how to manipulate our emotions.
Absolutely.
And people who want something from us might understand how to manipulate our emotions as well. Children are masters of that, actually, like especially young children.
Your children.
As Dennis can attest.
Your own
yeah.
children.
Yes.
Your own children
right.
have this
Your-
kind of
your
a
own
chemical
children.
link thing.
They understand where it is.
Yeah.
So if you want to kind of immunize yourself from that, you have to be clear what your values are and then how you're going to put those into the world so that you can resist the emotional temptation or the draw of reacting to other people's needs, wants, and desires that may not be aligned with yours.
And how would you do that?
Well, by doing the introspection and then having a focused time of bringing those into conscious and awareness, attaching the emotion to those things, and being mindful of them as you operate.
So when the child would come to you and in a moment where you're completely engaged in some other mundane activity and you're distracted, and she or he timed it perfectly to ask for, I don't know what it is, chocolate, TV, or whatever it is. How would you, how would that play out? So if you have a value where you say, within, you don't feel that that is the right decision for him or her to make in that moment, yet, you look in the eyes of the little 3-year-old, 4-year.
Yeah, that's where the tough parenting comes in, right? We have to acknowledge their desires and yet explain to them why that's not going to happen.
But
and
what
then
if
you might have to disappoint them.
What if the desire is not aligned with your values, but it's aligned with the child's values?
Yeah, I guess if it's I had a pretty wide band for where I let the kids bounce off of, a wide band of things. So if they valued it and it wasn't doing themselves harm or other people harm, then it was pretty much fair game. But still, they want some boundaries and they want some direction as well. So they will test your boundaries at every occasion. So you have to be aware of that.
And boundaries do prepare them for the future.
And disappointing is I think, is a key word as well, because as a parent, that's your role, that's your job, to disappoint as well.
There's a lot of that, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's just basic economics as well, right? There's not unlimited resources of time, money, effort, attention. So how do you spread those things, and making them aware that if you want something, you're going to have to put time and attention into achieving that or gaining it, and being aware of basic economics and that you can't have everything and there's going to be some disappointments. Now, we don't have to have a scarcity mindset, but making them responsible for their own gains in the world in some way, and building that into them, that's part of our jobs.
Making them feel responsible for how they spend their time, right? And what is the outcome of that? Because that brings us full circle, I guess, back around to the theme.
Imagine
Because
what would happen if your child never experienced the disappointment that you as a parent provide them, and they got to 20 years old and their first disappointment was in their first job, and they had a complete meltdown and threw themselves on the ground and had a temper tantrum because they'd never had to be disappointed before and they had no idea how to deal with it.
I think I've seen that happen before.
It doesn't make them a bad person, just makes them unprepared for the real world.
People at any age can behave like that, actually.
Some people even go to lectures and throw F-bombs and stuff. It's crazy.
the value of experiencing adversity in life, isn't it? From early on.
Well, if there's too much yes going on in the family, I think that kind of handicaps a child.
Yeah, definitely. Because in order for you to appreciate the value of a yes, you would have to know what no means as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of speaking from experience because I had my first no at 7, and that was pretty late for a no. So I remember
so much.
I remember it very vividly. No, maybe it was 5, but it was in a time where I could actually not understand, be completely befuddled and completely shocked and going, no, there's something wrong with the system. Something's broken. There's something broken. Completely not understanding why this is happening. You know what I mean?
So let's talk a little bit about what we've got in mind for Wednesday, and what the audience might want to do in regard to listening to this information and preparing themselves over the next few days of what they're going to observe, what they want to observe in themselves, some of the techniques and so forth. We're tackling this exercise in a way that's most conducive to them, and they can kind of try it, and then we'll talk some more about that. And then what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, I'd really love to hear some feedback from, say, Chris, who, if he's trying the time sort and to see where he spends his time to really hear back. And from you guys, I mean, we've only just started monitoring our time, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more conclusions and feedback on Wednesday. Also, we'll hear from Sam. So Willow, maybe she will let us know how she did with the exercise. And I think that this is a huge topic that we can definitely unpack a lot more with, like values and time and the mystery of time. It's just, it's a huge topic.
Yeah, and that idea of matrix or mosaic learning, of nonlinear, of putting pieces of the puzzle together in a nonlinear fashion, and then being accepting of what's happening, even if you don't understand it at the moment. Like, it all has value, and you can integrate your experience. And it might not be that you understand how or when, but if you're open to and accepting it, then things will come to you over time. And you have to take the time and maybe sit quietly and make quiet time for yourself to be able to integrate some of these things.
And by the way, I also remember Dennis asking what a mind palace is. And I think what I should do is organize an interview with somebody who knows this topic and do a little bit of talk just specifically on the mind palace. And then your question will be answered.
Very nice.
Something to look forward to.
Michael looks like he's already been experiencing mind palaces for years. He's got that I just ate a bird cat face on.
Dennis, I'm interested, like as far as meditation goes, in the practice that you practice. How much time do you spend? A lot of time meditating? Do you visualize that kind of thing? Do you do a lot of that stuff? Is that part of
that? That's interesting, because that came up as well when I when I set up the pie, and then so there was like I think one of the suggested words, like sorry, how many time do we spend on spirituality? And then when I really ponder upon that, is like that to me, like now where I'm right now, is not really only related to like sitting in a specific posture or doing a specific exercise, but that's I don't feel that there's any moment where I'm not spiritual, so to say, if you even want to declare it with that word. And that brings me back to the awareness that we were talking about earlier, because really and truly what has been happening over the years is that a certain I guess I'm more able and I'm more better able to hold a certain awareness even in mundane things that I do, like I might be washing the dishes, but I'm not just washing the dishes, but I'm there doing it with an awareness of my being, of where I'm emotionally, intellectually, and what's going on with my thoughts and my body, and how does it feel, what is there, some aches, and what is perceiving my environment like on a different level. So I don't if you ask me in terms of do I have like a set schedule, like of hours sitting quiet of a certain practice, I think, and I want to improve upon that, because there's been times where I did a lot of that, and then there's times where I don't do so much about it, and then there was a phase where I started to feel guilty about or not doing as much as I wanted, and sometimes I even have that, but I kind of step away from that, and that give me an additional, how would you say, boost, or like a calm, or like a how, like, sense of calmness, not having to worry about sitting in a specific posture, doing a specific practice, because that really that practice, if at all, is only there to bring you to the awareness of who you really are, and that awareness is not dependent on a specific technique. And while many of the techniques certainly have value, but the why you would do those techniques is to bring you to that state, and that state you can have it like this. If anyone tells you, oh, you have to do ABC in order to get it, then it might be true as well as not, because it might be helpful to be there, but it's not a dependency, it's not a necessity. You don't depend on that. And so it's like the question to me is then, oh, what does it take for me to be free in this moment? What does it take to me to be in harmony, in balance, to be totally well in every way? Does it take for me to have money on the account? Does it take for me to get a massage from somebody, or to sit at the beach, in some quiet place, or does it take for me to meditate for hours every day? Is that necessary, or is that also beliefs and conditioning to a certain extent that makes me believe that I need all of that in order to be there? Or is that state that I'm really looking for, is that something inherent in me already, something that I don't need to do anything, but something that I am already, that is just to be discovered and unveiled in that moment. So those are some, that's a those kind of, and I don't even think it's thoughts, but I, that's a state that I'm looking for, and that I'm working on achieving more and more often, and holding that state for as long as I can, even in a multitude of people, or in a loud bus, or being around the children. It's a possibility that is there for everyone. I'm certain of that. I know that this possibility exists in every moment of our life. And so I'm just excited every day to explore this possibility further, and to be able to hold that state, to connect with that state that is within us every day. But then certainly, the to set up an environment, and to set up a practice as well, and to develop a discipline, that is certainly of tremendous value. And that's something also that is on my list, of things to further develop. Yeah.
It strikes me as what is the criteria in regard to somebody that's efficiently managing their time? Is there even any kind of criteria in regard to that? How do people determine if they are doing a good job of managing their time versus really kind of letting a lot of this stuff go out, and not being able to schedule time, not being able to have the willpower to define times for particular things. I know we kind of allow ourselves to make commitments to other people or to other things, and allow that to kind of steer us. But is that really the best way to go about it? I think for the next show, I think that's something that I'm going to do a little bit of research and see what I can find about that, and bring that as well to our discussion.
Are we managing our time, or is our time being managed?
That's one of the things where, yeah, are we taking control of it, or are we just like letting other people control it for us, kind of thing? I don't know. Has anybody got any more comments on that? Or otherwise,
Let's wait till Wednesday. Shh, don't say any comments on that, or we won't have any content. We got so much content.
All right. Well, I want to go ahead and move on to our last topic of the day, which is a little bit of a journaling update. And I'm kind of excited to hear what everybody's got to say about what's going on with their journaling. So does anybody want to volunteer to go first?
I'll volunteer. I wasn't perfect. I didn't write every single day this week, but I wrote some days, and some of the things I wrote are really cool. And I also got that 5-year journal where I'll be writing one sentence every day for a year, and the next year they'll be next to each other. So I'll get to actually see my progress, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think that is a really interesting exercise. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think to me, it sounds very exciting, and you're obviously excited about it. So that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for those kind of things that motivate you to be really interested and creative about this task, which is really a good habit to have. But excellent work in regard to finding that little piece of the puzzle that fits for you.
Nice.
I noticed I wasn't doing it every day either, but I did it more so than the week before. And as I said last Monday, my goal was to kind of come away from that format that I had, where I would regularly like write down what I'm feeling, what I want to change, and remind myself about something that I think is going great and that I'm grateful for. And then I think it was yesterday when I sat down and I started to write, and I didn't even much think about what I was going to write. So I kind of started writing what was on my mind, and it was interesting how it started to flow, and I was writing even faster, and how I would end up um, like writing about what I felt. So it went from my thoughts to my feelings and got more like to an emotional level, and that was really interesting. And then I just had to get the kids dressed and catch the bus, so that's what interrupted it. But I felt like I could have been writing like like a lot. So that was interesting. I'm excited about continuing that and see what comes out of that kind of free flow.
I wonder what it would be like if you told your kids, I know they're really young, but still, okay, it's journaling time, and you all three sat down and did some writing in a book or whatever. Like, I know the 3-year-old will probably just do some scribbles or whatever, but just do, like, instill that habit, because I mean, just doing it for a few weeks, I think it's definitely valuable. And if it was a
It's
habit from childhood, I would definitely be doing a lot more of it.
Yeah, it's powerful. Like I remember my own childhood, because before um, I used to read like a lot, and I started to read before I could write, and I read books, and then once I started to be able to write a little bit, I would note and kind of pride myself in how many books I would read per month, and those were like my first kind of diaries. Like I wrote down the title of the book and the author, and then like years later, I would go through them. I was like, wow, that was really interesting. And even just this year, like when going through old childhood stuff in my mommy's basement, like I would find my old diaries, and I couldn't find the ones like for my teenage years. I'm not sure what happened to those, because those I was really interested in, like even to discover like my thoughts and my kind of my inner world, what I would write down then. But I found the ones from like my pre-teenage years, so to say, and it was super interesting, like because it brought back so many memories, and even like what I focused on writing, like it was just, oh, the sun is shining today, it's nice, grandpa came by, we went to go look at the animals in the zoo, and then the next day. So it was like mundane things, but it's interesting to see what I would have perceived like in a day and what was important to me. And yeah, I really hope that maybe someday I can even find the diaries that I had later on, because I remember like I even called my diary like different names, and it had like almost like a personality, and like I wrote down like plenty stuff in it. So that was part of the whole like, that whole self-discovery journey I feel that I'm on, that we are on as well. And it became so much more interesting now to again reconnect to that inner child and find out what was going on back then.
When I was a teenager, my diaries consisted of, he looked my way. We were on the same bus together. Here's the bus ticket from the bus. It was a glorious day.
Nice.
Tim, how about
I
you?
think he knows my
What-
name.
what's,
Sorry.
what's your experience been this week?
Well, I have been somewhat delinquent. I have my Emeraldy spreadsheet, which I'm keeping up. I don't know if I can qualify that as a journal, but I have been writing some thoughts on the weekly basis, and I'm kind of aware. It makes me aware of my feelings around the things that I'm doing, and then tracking that just helps me understand if I'm on track, and then if I'm getting better at doing the things that I say that I want to do and the way that I spend my time, and then I'm trying to track how I feel about it down below. Uh, yeah, so it's valuable for sure.
Oh, that sounds like a fantastic exercise. One of the things like I really want to focus is on, I think I was mentioning it last time, on focusing that I do everything I do with joy. So that seems like the exercise for me to do, like to kind of track down, do I feel joy? Do I feel, a joyful feeling when I did ABC or not? And then probably if I did not, and if I catch myself doing that, then I should just stop doing that.
Yeah, make some adjustments.
Absolutely.
That's an
Yeah, well, I
interesting
think
question, isn't it? Like what will happen if you only follow our bliss, our joy, so to say?
There's a meme
What
about
would go?
that, and it talks about, I've thrown out broccoli,
I
exercise
think they will.
equipment, and something else.
I think the bank will come get my cars if I do that.
there's I think Peter Sage. He's one of the kind of guru from England, and he talks about this. This might be something that you can add to the journaling exercise, and that is recording your magic moments. And when you have a magic moment in a particular day, taking the time to record what that was, whether it was like you had some kind of brilliant idea or you impressed yourself or impressed some other people or something like that. But taking the moment, taking that opportunity to find those magic moments in your day and just being cognizant of looking for those magic moments because I think the more you look for them, the more you're going to find. And that can really be an exciting thing, an exciting discovery about ourselves in regard to just being observant of what's going on in our daily lives. Because we're some amazing people, and there's a lot of amazing things that go on almost every day that we participate in that are cool. We can do cool things for cool, for people. And then there's always those opportunities where as we start to see how we do these things, how those can play into other people's lives and how we can make cool things happen for them, you know, and make those like memorable moments in their lives too.
So I had a very satisfying moment last night because my wife sat through my whole 150 slide presentation and she enjoyed it and gave me some
Wow.
good feedback. So that was fun.
That's sweet.
And it was kind of validating of the work that I had done and that it can still have a positive effect for people.
That's awesome.
I have like a, I
Yeah.
have a secret trick how to make every moment like a magic moment for myself, and I just remembered it because I consciously remember that I was sitting at school when I was like, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, probably even several times and all those years throughout, and I was sitting there and I was like bored to death and was like, this is bad, like I don't want to be here. And I was I was dreaming away and I was like thinking, oh, just imagine yourself 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and it's going to be great. I don't know what I'm going to be doing or where I'm going to be, but it's going to be great just because I won't be here. And sometimes now I remember back those moments and say, yeah, it's great because I'm not sitting at school being bored to death.
That's how I felt about moving out on my own. My parents were like, oh, you're going to have to pay rent and stuff. And then I remember sitting in my first apartment going, it's great. I have no food, but I don't care.
That's okay. Nice. That's
Alrighty.
nice.
Well,
Those.
Well, with that said, we're running out of time, so I guess we can close this thing up for another successful episode.
Until Wednesday. We're thinking about maybe changing our time. There are discussions for Wednesday. So stay tuned. We may be making some changes.
Are we gonna shift our time, or are we gonna keep the same?
We still haven't heard back from all the members. This is democracy, right?
No, I don't think it's a democracy. I think we're actually consent.
A consensus. There you go. There you go.
Everybody gets a veto.
That's right.
But with that said, thank you everybody for taking the time, listening to what we got to say. Hopefully this really helped you out. And if not, let us know what we can do to make this better, because we're obviously always trying to improve, and that's why we're raising excellence.
Absolutely. Always trying to improve. And have a great day. See you all on Wednesday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.